Thank you. Welcome everyone to the Harriosn lecture series. Today is our last lecture of the academic year 2024-2025. I want to take a moment to acknowledge the Harriosn family for their support of this lecture series. Without their commitment to the School of Architecture, none of this would be possible. Today, we are very honored to have the speaker, architect Gabirela Carillo. She started her studio named Gabirela Carillo in 2019 as a collaborative and interdisciplinary space for architectural work. She's a co-founder of the C733 Collective, dedicated to developing public projects in Mexico. Previously, she was a partner at Taller Rocha Carillo over 9 years. With over 20 years of experience, she has received numerous accolades, including the Emerging Voices Award in 2014, the Federico Mariscal Chair, the highest recognition for professional practice by the College of Architecture at UNAM, Universidad Nacional Autónoma de Mexico, and the Médaille d'Or from the French Academy of Architecture. She was named Architect of the Year by Architectural Review in London in 2017 and by Architectural Digest Mexico in 2020. Gabirela has also been a member of the National System of Art Creators since 2021, an academic member of the Academy of Architecture of Mexico, Mexico City chapter. Carillo has been an academic at the College of Architecture UNAM since 2003, and she currently leads the research and graduation seminar Studio RX. She has taught at prestigious institutions such as Harvard, GSD, Kent State University, and the WAVE program in Venice, among others. Her work has been exhibited and honored in various national and international biennales and featured in renowned publications like Domus, Casabella, Arquitectura Viva, and Architectural Review, among other publications. Let's welcome Gabirela Carillo.
Hola, hola, hola. Well, I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for this invitation. It's my first time in Mississippi, so I'm excited being here. I'm sorry I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but at least I can visit the campus. I was really surprised with the beautiful building you work. I think it's very important to develop architecture in good spaces, and I'm sure you have a great one. So congratulations on that. I was raised in a public university as well, one of the biggest and most important universities in Latin America, called UNAM. We are Pumas by nature, and we sing Goyas all the time. That's our cheer shout. It's a very amazing campus, a modern campus protected by the UNESCO. And one of the most important things I care about it is that it's a really public, it's one of the only democratic spots that we got in Mexico. You know, Mexico, as all the world, has become kind of an oligarchy, and somehow the biggest amount of money is condensed in just a small bunch of people. But what's beautiful about the university, it's a public park, it's a public space, and it is also a space where anyone can study and have access to education. I would run along some of the different, like a bit of a story of my work, not focusing specifically in anything, but trying to talk about the main issues and the main objectives that I had and work on in my last 25 years of practice. And I would focus a bit more in the public projects, which is the main work I've been doing for the last 5 years. So during my life, I had the opportunity. Yes. Okay. Okay. Oh, okay. I know how to do that. Don't worry. It's just like that.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry for the group that was in WebEx. Okay, so I feel I'm very lucky because I had I had to work in many projects along my professional life. And one that was really significant for me, and I mentioned to the group I was visiting the school, is the library for blind people and seeing impaired. That space, which was a transformation from an old building, a very small two spaces to work in, had changed me, I think, for my whole life, my professional life. And it is because we are basically taught to design for the eyes. You see, that's the way we are teach, and that's the way we teach. And that's something that when you have a client that doesn't see, that was a thing that was a big question for me. What was the space I should design? So the first one was to imagine the contrast, to have an open space, a space composed by aromas, and that would approach the nose rather than the eyes. And the second one was the feature of the space itself, but more than the view, the ears, that you felt that your eyes were not here, but were here, and that finally the composition of the space has to do with sounds. So it was really beautiful because it was an opportunity to design a soundscape and to find out the big possibilities that echo, resonance, composition of sounds are meaningful in the creation of space. I live in a country of diversity. I live in a country with a lot of memory. So starting from scratch is almost a stupidity, I think, because we have many things to grab. And projects like this were projects, yes. What? We're getting feedback? It's because I'm too near, maybe?
Because the two mics are.
Oh, there's sound. That's what you're saying.
So how do I get the mic here?
Okay. But I think my mic is off. I'm not sure. Yeah, it's off.
Oh, that's your audio.
Yeah, that's my audio.
Mic box.
Okay. My mic is off too.
Okay. Sorry.
Don't worry.
You guys hear that, right? I'm not crazy.
Echo.
It's a nice feedback.
Echo.
It's a nice feedback, but it's feedback.
I
Okay.
can speak.
Sorry.
Here?
Go ahead.
Is it good?
No, it's fine. Do what you do. It's just that there's nobody getting rid of that. I'm so sorry.
No, don't worry. It's okay. You can interrupt me. I mean, really, anytime, for any reason. And it's perfect. The idea is that you enjoy and not suffer. So that's good. Sounds good. Yeah. Okay. So in projects like this, it was important for us to unveil. When we visited this patio, it was completely covered. The proportions of the arcades were different. The space was really small. We didn't understand why our client bought this plot. But suddenly, unveiling, throwing away things is a nice way to compose a space. And of course, understanding that unveiling is a big issue to work in contemporary life. I mean, there are many things that are built, and unfortunately, we need to get rid of a lot that are already there, and that's another opportunity to compose. And in this case, of course, the contemporary intervention is the minimum as possible, just unveiling the old structures that were there. For many years, I had worked in developing programs, very complex programs like judicial courts. And for me, it was a great opportunity because for the first time, I asked myself what architecture can do. Can we reach and get freedom with space? Is it possible? That's a big question I ask. How can I provide security without having any bars? steel bars, and still understanding how a contained space can become powerful, maybe just sometimes with light. I had worked in very different and diverse sites, like sites that had very complex and violent conditions. Maybe sometimes the density doesn't allow to have public areas. And it has been nice to discover that just letting maybe alone in a place, and then a space just to play, and a more silent space just to have the freedom for many things to happen, has been meaningful. As I mentioned before, in our city, we have culture, we had different timings, we had different languages in terms of architecture, we have memory. And those things have been important to create a dialogue. And how can a dialogue happen between the past and the future? I don't want to rebuild those buildings. Those buildings are already there. I don't want to work like them. But I want to establish a new dialogue. And that dialogue is not only about materials and the materiality of concrete or wood or steel. It has to do with intelligence of how we can make it work. And for example, in this case, take advantage of a rooftop that was abandoned, built on top a steel light structure, and take advantage of the views that were there without damaging the old structure that was below. I love to work with ephemeral things because timing is a big question that I ask myself all the time. What does time mean? What is it? Is it something ephemeral when it's gonna receive more than 1,000 visitors per day or more, or some work that is not ephemeral that receives just 1 or 2 visitors per year? What does time means in architecture? I love the ephemeral work also because it lets me explore and do exercises that take some risk. And I think one of the biggest problem of architecture today is that we're not willing to take any risk anymore. We are condemned by codes, by a bunch of things that doesn't allow us to explore. And ephemeral work allow us to do that. And that is our small exercises. Of course, that building is a museum designed by this guy, the Pritzker, I forgot. The Humex Museum is designed by Chipperfield. Thank you. Oh, I forgot that. By David Chipperfield. And the intervention is just a scheme that could create a tension between the light ephemeral walls and the structure that is behind. So there's a tension between what happens and what not. And also on this ephemeral work, in this case, a pavilion in downtown area in the Alameda, which is the most important and biggest park that we have in the country. We could scale it with a portico design with agave leaves, which was the leaves that we had because our client and the sponsor of the pavilion was the owner of a big tequileria called 1800 that I'm sure you know, Casa Cuervo, because Cuervo is providing tequila to all the world. And you need to know that they throw the leaves away because they do the tequila with the heart and the roots of the agave. So we wanted to take advantage of those leaves. And you know, this inspiration came from some homes that happened in Hidalgo, in a small town away, a couple of hours away from the city, where all structures were built with agave leaves. And it is very particular because the agave for the tequila, the leaves are blue, kind of blue green, and I invited my students to help me to weave this. I paid them with tequila bottles. they were happy, I need to say. They stitch all their hands, but it was a beautiful experiment because, of course, the people from agriculture were anxious, saying, "Oh no, the leaves, they're gonna lose water, they're gonna smell, we're gonna have bees," and all that stuff. At the end, is that it creates space. The aromas bring space. The bees and the sounds will bring space and would compose something. And we were lucky that it just lasted for 2 days, because at the second day the leaves were falling. But that was experimentation. I think it's important to take in consideration for that work that is not ephemeral, that is gonna be there for a while. And then this idea of thinking of many things, you know, in this case, the olive trees were already there. My client wanted to build some bathrooms for his weddings. This site is Ensenada, which is really desertic. So we wanted to bring like a pavilion of water, a completely to blend the architecture, the walls of stone, the elements of wood with the landscape, to blend also the borders between doing architecture or a landscape design. And I think that is something I've been working a lot. I don't know anymore the limits between architecture and landscape, and that's a big concern, because I see in the schools that they are really separate, that they wanted to be splitted, but it's important to think that they are always touching one point through the other. And of course, I work with landscape architects, but I think this idea of solving the limits between inner and outside space is something really important. For me, working in sites, in case like this one, where I had been working for 15 years, had let me understand things that are important. So please don't underestimate time. Good design needs good timing investment. And that doesn't mean you need to be 15 years working in a plot. But maybe if you have 2 weeks, maybe at least 1 week is a week of observation, of understanding, of listening. And in this case, for example, this home, I just wanted to do a graft in the landscape because those bushes need 100 years to grow like that. And a construction is an open heart surgery. You know, everything that you move, it's been damaged. And I wanted to feel that the construction was something that was there for a long time. I took these pictures when the construction was finished. There was no landscape done here. I just moved earth. I carved some voids where I could run away from the wind. I created an observatory to see the stars on top. And I considered that the wind was a beautiful ally, but also a big enemy. The wind in this place become like knives. So I carve a void, I place the rooms there. I just move earth and stone, that is a material that is available. And that was the resources I used to compose a space. Other times, and other thing which is really important is to do the minimum and to work in a minimal position. And it is funny, but to do this type of work, which is a very small plot, 100 square meters, which is the smallest plot that you can get in the city, this project took us so much time, because it's just 3 floors that are the same. In one small axis, we got all the services, and in another one, we have 3 levels. We took advantage of the neighbors, and we built a tower of brick. And with brick, we did everything: the floors, the lattice, the position to let the light cross, because to search among simple stuff like light, wind, voidness, they're powerful resources which are for free, and we had forgotten them. I love to work with local materials, of course, materials that understand topography. I hate these huge programs, so I'm always trying to blend them and to unsolve them in the different conditions. I think we had a problem in our minds, because we are stick to this idea that we want to pursue what shines, you know. And what shines? The sea, So we always want to see the sea, like in an obvious way. And we're losing the opportunity to achieve the jungle, the stones, other points of view, which are also significant. I think those inputs had harmed us a lot, because what happens is that everyone today wants this very modern type home with all the windows open, forgetting that sometimes there are hurricanes, or sometimes you need to protect yourself from the sun. Because if you're placing a whole window facing to the south with all the sun getting in, you need a lot of air conditioning to take away that hot. But if you protect with density and you open with a very specific and intelligent way the voidness, you can achieve things happen. I had taken advantage of architecture to talk about the rights and the things in terms of social issues that I pursue. I designed a home for my father and my brother, taking advantage that I knew them. So I kind of abuse my position. And I understood that my father was going to understand that I wanted to let the territory as natural as it was when I found it. So the stones, the waves of stones that were already there are part of the composition of the home. And I just wanted to let like these very subtle, minimal actions floating, and understanding my brother is a lawyer. He is rich, really rich. And he's rich because he knows how to take care of his money. But also we have this input of, we want an urban home in a context like Acapulco, which is a beach. And my father had lived there for years. So I took advantage of my father when he said, oh, but if I want to go to my bathrooms, the rain is going to fall on me. And I said, Father, you barely use a tie in 20 years. I mean, you're always in a swimsuit. Why do you care to get the rain? I mean, you're always barefoot. Maybe let's focus on getting a floor that won't get hot, that won't be slippery, and that we will find out how to create a new dialogue between that beautiful young girl to see back and forth. So I think also one issue is that in the modern period of architecture, we had created back of the houses. You know, we are always throwing garbage, not understanding what amount of water we need. We're throwing things to a place that we don't see. So that place becomes nonsense. And usually the poorest ones are the ones that inherit those spaces. So for me, it was important to create a statement, not having a portico house, seeing to the front and to the back, letting the wind cross, and not having a main room or a girl pink room or a blue pink well, now that would be nice, but a blue room for a boy. And I think those are statements in terms of architecture. I am surrounded by crisis everywhere. We have hurricanes, we have earthquakes, we have violence, we have no money. So for me, teaching is a big statement for my professional practice, because it's an opportunity to research and to explore. So I encourage my students to develop projects that are grown from real, raw and terrible problems, sometimes not that terrible, but like we don't have water, we have water issues, but we have violence, we have, you know, and then working with them would make sense. So I had worked because of that with them, developing projects where we want to show people, especially in Iztapalapa, which is a very vulnerable neighborhood and the more dense in the city, that our city is based in a cracked territory. So in this case, the Observatory of Cracks is a spot where you reach the building through a crack, and that traces the axis of the building, how it was meant to be. And also, it had brought us to big questions. What does beautiness means today? You know, because that's what a big issue. We are always expecting, and our client, not even here. And I think it's because we inherit a lot of things from the outside. But beautiness for us is having a lawn. I mean, for my clients, is having some roses or some ornamental plants. And And this for me is beautiness today, because it is an observatory of cracks. So it is a spot where the wells, to show the people how the site is in subsidence and how endangered they are, and how you can create a pavilion light enough that could move easily through the ground, and still it's beautiful because it's intelligent. But that means a lot of work to switch our minds, and that's why I pursue a lot to work with intelligent structures that could be light enough so they will be more efficient, and I do those explorations. So from all of this, I will focus now in a couple of projects that I did with a colectivo, because we got an invitation from the Faculty of Architecture of UNAM. The faculty was hired by the federal government. This case was unique. For the last 70 years, architects were not involved in designing any public facility, rather than the big competitions that happen every 20 years and that are won. The last one was the big Vasconcelos Library, won by Alberto Calach, which, by the way, was finalist with David Chipperfield, and Calach won. But it's huge. And now to see that building, it's annoying, and it's also something very terrible to think that we are a luxury object, don't you think? Like, architecture should be just for the rich ones. And I really don't believe that. So we design a team, and there's where it starts. Because of what they asked us, we decided to wrap 4 offices to design this competition: To, LabG, Israel Spin, and my office, with different skills, lightweight structures, community bounds, in different scales, ephemeral architecture interventions, and political issues, because doing public works is something, doing architecture is a political thing. We talk about borders, we talk about limits, we talk about quality in space, dignity space, so somehow. So at the end, we won the competition, and we ended building 36 projects in a time of 36 months. This was because the time frame for a building to happen was in 1 year. You need to do the competition in 2 months, in 2 weeks, design the building in 3 months, do all the paperwork in 3 months, and build the building in other 4 or 5 months. So the money should be spent in 1 year, and the architects were never asked to design this type of projects, which at the end we did with a strategy, even though they were with different programs, markets, cultural facilities, community centers, plazas. We found out that we needed to design one strategy, because they asked us that the project that we were doing was meant to be replicated everywhere, and we hate that idea. So we thought, we understood that at the end, all these programs have 2 scaled programs, which is the stall of a market or a restroom, or a community hall, which could be a music hall, which could be a community kitchen. And with that, we work with 2 elements: the geometry, which is the one that let us and allow us to be efficient. So it was no discussion about that. We couldn't do a ceiling, a flattened ceiling, because it cost a lot more. You need to spend a lot of money. It is overweighted because it needs to bear the rain and the snow. And it doesn't work easily with light structures. And the light structure was an element to do prefabrication, which was also important for this project. So at the end, we managed to build them all. They come from the same nature, geometry and topography, like pre-Hispanic work, but they look and they seem to be very different, not only in programs, but also in materiality. And we started asking, how should a public building should look like? And in our case, our competition was to talk about markets. And we think that we usually forgot things which are important, like informality. We wanted to design a scheme that was flexible enough to become a system that could be arranged in different ways. We wanted to design unique and single structures that could be wrapped to other structures, and we wanted to do the lightest one, so it could be efficient in cost and, of course, in the clearance that it needs to cover. We were thinking, of course, in developing architecture that would be intelligent, no air conditioning because there's no money to keep them working, that it would work with taking away the sun, working with the wind, harvesting the water. And we wanted to add some program that was not requested since the beginning. Like they asked for a market, well, we will give you an oasis in the desert that you have the plot. And the flexibility for switching the materials and understanding each layer is significant to do a very single structure that would have a very superficial foundation, that we have a prefab structure that could be bring to the site and mix with a masonry work, a civil work at the same time, a material that could take acoustical and local conditions, but then a light one that could fix to the water and harvesting and doing all these other elements. So at the end, we managed not to build the first project in 3 months, but we built it in 4 months. And it was a market that worked with all these principles. At the end, we decided to do it with brick in this case because it was a local material that was well supplied. If you see, there's a mechanical brick and on top it is an artisanal brick. It is in a plot that was filled with needles of heroin. Imagine the type of violence in the border northern. So these communities, they have a lack of public spaces, and we wanted to work with these scales, understanding we need a small scale but also a high ceiling to give this dignity. And at the end, architecture for me is something that has to do with generosity. And generosity, sometimes you can achieve it just with a big ceiling, or maybe with the flood of the wind, or maybe with a garden in itself. At this point, the garden was not finished, but now the garden is happening. Even though we don't have water to rain it, still the water that is harvested works to make it happen. And then what happened is they ask us to rebuild our project in other site in the southern border, where the conditions were completely different. But with that same strategy, we achieved with the local material, in this case, which was a bamboo, the oasis became a rambla, and the stalls were a lot more than the ones that we had at the other market. We managed to design a building that still has its own personality, that takes the water. In this case, it rains so much, so we designed these kind of canals to create some rain gardens. And then the connectivity of the neighborhoods was a main issue. We changed the program that they asked us. This market had, we knew that there were a lot of old people, so we wrapped a daycare center for old people with a market, because we found out a lot of the stalls were controlled by old people, so they need those caring facilities. And also, we found out that a lot of mothers have their kids in their stalls during the afternoons, and they were working in their homeworks there, and there was no caring facility surrounding. So we create a mercateca, which is kind of a market with a library, so the library could be a place so the people and the students and the kids could be. And then the outside facilities became a soccer field. And yes, I know here it's important to be clear. And also some elements that seems to be nothing, but there are games and informal games. And each market took its own personality depending on the site where it was. And the site was a great inspiration. This is in the middle of the jungle, of the Calakmul jungle, and all the homes there are made have very tall ceilings, are done with wood. The only place in Mexico where wood is used, timber, and all the ceilings are gray and with some color. So inside there's our chimneys, which are painted in colors because it's the spirit of the site. We designed different scale of sites, like big scales, like a baseball field. And I need to say this because it's important. I hate baseball fields, but I don't hate them because it's a sport, it's amazing. Baseball might be amazing. It's because what this type of facilities does to the structure of the urban fabric. And in communities like these ones, like Acuña, you see, all the city is kind of a desert. It's quite expanded. It's dense. Still, people walk through because in most of the cities in Mexico, just 25% of the people has a car. And that's something to be said. And what happens here is that the baseball field takes all the block. So at the end, what you will have is a big wall without living space, and what we usually do is we do studies before we start to work in the plot and in the design. We found out that most of the violence that happened in this neighborhood happened in these walls. And it was not a surprise. It makes sense. So now that I have cleared out that I don't have anything against baseball, but the typology of the echo, what architecture does in this urban fabric is what is meaningful. And of course, we were working for a social party. So we asked, okay, which ones, we didn't know any about baseball. So we asked, which are the most expensive seats in these matches? And they said the Diamond. And we said, fantastic, the Diamond is going to be a public plaza. Of course, we got a lot of enemies because of that, because the municipal president was the one that was charging the tickets. So he lost a lot of money because of our project, but a lot of the people that he ruled gained other opportunities. So again, doing politics, it's something that is meaningful through space. And the last thing was that we wanted to do with one thing, many things. So what we did is the sun here is very bad. There's no way to make any vegetation grow and not maintenance. So we thought, let's split the position of the solid wall and create a seats at the same time a shade, but a shade also a public shade for people to walk. And then half of the work was a very light, efficient structure. Then they could become something bigger, and the rest would be moving the earth and containing those earths. And again, for me, seeing this sandy, at the end, when you go to the beach, you love the idea of having these dunes and these sands. And why can't we live with them and believe that that could become something interesting? So at the end, we unsolved again the limits, which was something very important for us, that visual connectivity could be achieved. And on that sense, to change the purpose and the mindset of the people, that they could walk through the wall, talking about walls today, which was something transparent enough to provide that safeness that we pursue. And this scale of projects happen in other conditions, and where the main issue was, like in Tapachula, to achieve connectivity, to match the new structure with the old building, which was a railway station, to get inspired by that repetitivity of a pattern, and that this could provide us different opportunities to live the space in different ways. And it's fantastic, the creativity, the people, when you provide a space that doesn't have a specific purpose, the ways that it's being used is fantastic. And that is something very beautiful between this tension of specificity and being anonymous and just having maybe a statement in terms of space, but because it allows that life can happen in fantastic ways. In this case, they use the space. I visited this. This was transformed into a theater with scaffolds, and many transformations can happen. Then the sites that we work, my country is really vulnerable in many things. I think it's so rich, has so many beautiful and powerful things, but also so many fragilities. And for example, Tabasco is a state that is surrounded and it's under the sea level. So we saw in an app, and in 30 years, this site will be flooded. and we are investing public money there. So for us was a nice way to think how, and just moving earth, we can let the water move in an intelligent way. And it is fantastic to see that, for example, the only archaeological site that is built in bricks, so in clay, in the whole country happens there, which is Comalcalco. If you go to Tabasco, it's a very beautiful site. And we have also this syncretism, which is this not knowing where the pre-Hispanic culture is still alive. In this case, populations speak, 90% of them are still speaking their Chontal local language. And this idea of the Catholicism and the colonial period. So how to achieve those hybrids, and because you're working for these populations, the work is for these populations. And then the last thing, which is important, is that the whole city now is solved with the streets, of course, for the cars, which, by the way, I really hate the cars. And the cars I really hate, and I understand we need them, but unfortunately the cities are designed with the car in the first place. I visited the campus, and they told me they had transformed this big avenue that used to be for cars, and that it's beautiful with these bricks. It's like a very beautiful spot. You want to stay there to see, to have an ice cream or a coffee. And in this case, what happened is that people use the car, but they had forgotten that the main facilities that they have, like the market, the sportive center, or the cultural center, walking distance have 700 meters, and they were connected by the river. But what happened? The people had built walls against the river. They are the back of the house. They throw trash, they throw polluted water. So because they are afraid also. And being afraid is a big problem. And you see, we can't be afraid. We need to face and to realize where we are and to recognize those positions. So we wanted to encourage and to provide this community to remember who they were and remember all these beautiful traditions of music, and to go back and see the river. So we designed a building that is basically a statement of water. It are 8 axes, 8 small rooms for music classrooms, a big hall with the services behind, all of them seeing to the river, with a cross public street that at the end, the limits of the plot is also, there's no fence. It's a public plaza surrounding and connecting to the river. And then with this, we designed 3 slanted ceilings to harvest water. So we treat the water, we recycle the water, we then treat them through wetlands that are beside the river, and we through the water, the clean water, back again to the river. So everything is facing the river. Everything is done with the clay, which is a local material. We took advantage of it in many conditions, like clay is in the floors, the brick is in the floors, in the lattices, in the rubble that we use, like here, because we didn't have money for gravel, so we just throw the remains of the debris of the brick to achieve that. We use the wood for the acoustical purposes, and the same material that is used for the marimba. So we thought it was beautiful, because also doing architecture has to do of wrapping sounds, and we saw it in the beginning, and also unveiling and working with these light things. And you see, these were the materials that were available on the site, and at the end we wanted to achieve always this idea of being close enough to wrap the sounds, but also to get open all the times, so all the sounds could mix, and all of them could mix with the river as well. And all of these could allow, like, maybe all the public facilities that happen on the streets could happen within the plot, and all these different opportunities to use the site could happen at the same time. Also, for me, exploring these public spaces, memory has become a big issue, and the inspiration of something that again is called time and that we have forgotten, the patina and the life of these old structures. So we've been trying to be playful with all our interventions, to take advantage of the voidness, just trying to retrofit what's already there, to recognize the trees and the shadows and the shades that are provided naturally without doing anything, and to recognize time through patina. We don't want to erase it. We want to keep it. And we wanted to create a dialogue. In this case, the inspiration for our contemporary intervention was this beautiful proportion of bricks, which we could still fabricate because there were local artisans. And in this cultural center, we didn't have enough money just to build some small workshop areas and a service pavilion, but we had space. So with those buildings, we wrap this voidness to create these multi-purpose spaces. So they work as scenarios for concerts. They use it in many different ways. And there is this tension between past and future, using the same materials and also using a playful scenarios. We had lost that. We become so boring when we are old. I need to say that. We had lost that spirit which is beautiful from kids, which is joyful, which is to discover spaces, to imagine new worlds. And I have a kid, so he inspired me so much with that. And we've been exploring all the same playground, already built, that you bought in Costco or in Walmart, made of plastic, and that is the same everywhere. In this case was an opportunity to think in a playground that was at the same time intelligent in the use of materials, like not bringing big lawns, which were not the nature landscape, but cactus, agaves, all the natural landscape, and also to create an instead of having these huge lakes that is unsustainable to do that today. That's why I also hate golf courses. Because, and again, and it's not that I hate lawns. It's not that I hate grass. I love grass in the green prairie of England, where it grows naturally. But in this site, what we have was agaves and nopales, and it's because it's intelligent, they grow naturally and they are beautiful as well. And if the public space is always teaching you what beauty should be or look like, and that is a big issue, because that had destroyed our planet in a way, and that's why we're facing today these environmental issues that we need to deal with. So for me, designing these playgrounds was an opportunity to let the imagination, not only of kids, but also of adults, that these scenarios could happen, even in the structures, like imagining some sheeps, a sheep floating on top, and that you can go, and this is a space to wait for a ferry that will go to a touristic spot, but then placing just these canastas so they could play basketball in the meantime had bring life to these spaces that have these temporal uses and time of to be used. Just to end a bit, this last project talks about environmental issues, and this is a site very important and protected. It's a site that has the Lagoon of the Seven Colors, the oldest creatures on Earth, the stromatolitos. We have a few spots in our world that still have these stromatolitos. So and you see the urban fabric, which doesn't have drainage, so all the polluted water runs to the lagoon, and you see other thing that we had forgotten, which is all this agricultural land, which is destroying the jungle, and we had forgot that everything is a system, that the quality of that water has to do with the jungle, with the geology, with the soil, with the vegetation, with the mangroves, and that is a result of that. But we are just pursuing the beautiful lagoon, you know, and it's a big contradiction, because what had happened is that we had developed all these analysis and we had designed 3 facilities that are besides the lagoon, and what we had found is that all these facilities, what they used to have is this, the beautiful lawn to play. no? But what this used to have was mangroves. And it's important for you to see the quality of the water between the sites that doesn't have a mangrove and that have a beautiful lawn to be beside the lagoon, and the color and the quality of the water where the mangrove is. And this we couldn't have seen that without the eyes of an interdisciplinary voice that told us, hey guys, this is happening. They asked us in this case to build a community center. Imagine in a land that 70% of the land is a mangrove, or used to be. It's a mangrove today and is a swamp somehow. So we were just meant to work on this area of the plot, which is the mainland, let's say. And then we were, of course, there's a lot of prohibitions behind it, because ecologists don't want humans beside protected sites. And it is, again, other thing that we had unveiled. We want people not to see the sites or be beside them. So how they will learn about them. So our strategy, and this was a proposal we decided to propose to our client, was you ask us to design a community center, and we are proposing you an observatory for the mangrove, the lagoon, and the stars, which is at the same time a community center designed specifically for Bacalar, where we would provide a square of 200 meters each that would allow the visitors to move through the mangrove, to take a look in different scales at 3 meters height, or to have this corner where they can throw to the water so they could not harm the mangrove that is there, and that they could take a look. And we want to design a museum that it's also opportunity to understand the nature, providing an important intervention in landscape. So we could create rain gardens and that this could help to filter the polluted water that would arrive. We could provide a very simple and common sense structure with a local material, which is the Chico Zapote wood, that would have this same column for having a 7 meters height structure, or an 80 centimeters that it's already down in the lagoon. So this piece at the same time, I remember this, 3 meters. 3 meters is the secret. In 3 meters, I don't know how many foot, maybe 9 foot. Yeah, that would be. Anything can happen there. You can dine, you can sleep, you can place a hammock, you can eat, you can have a big table, you can have a floor to walk through, but also in this case a shade. With the different heights, you can walk through the mangrove. We could place bathrooms, we could place a research center. So the building got deconstructed in a dock, in a pier, kind of a pier, but it is a building. It is a building that has these possibilities to be many things. And to become a museum was important. So we wrapped the story of the lagoon on like footprints in this pier, so the visitors could know a bit more about this. And even though it's a square, a single one, that is, of course, facing the north, because we are again underestimate on orientations. But if we're working with light, well, the orientation basically comes from that, you know, the position of the sun and the tension you get from that. So you see what happens with the shadow, and the tension of the reflection is important. And then in this case, we allow something which was our main target, which was that all those piers are already sold to small hotels, which you need to pay almost 200,000 to 2,000 pesos to be allowed to get in. So the local population doesn't have a community center, at least that has a possibility to reach the lagoon as a public space. So for me to think that architecture should be an opportunity to talk about democracy, to create a political statement behind, and maybe to unsolve and to think that today, doing architecture today could start maybe just doing a pier that could become many things. Thank you.